Hello, everyone, and welcome to Cloud Wars Live, where we explore today's digital revolution by speaking with business executives and thought leaders who are changing how the world lives, works, plays, learns, and dreams. Our guest today on this special sponsored episode of Cloud Wars Live is Steve Dahib, who's a Senior Vice President at Oracle, overseeing a lot of their cloud businesses. Steve, welcome back to Cloud Wars Live. Good to have you.
Thank you so much for having me. Happy New Year's.
Happy New Year's to you, sir. It looks like 2010 should be an interesting time here for what's going on with Oracle in the cloud.
I think so. I'm looking forward to it. I think we've come off a great 2019, and I'm looking forward to what 2020 will bring.
Fantastic, Steve. So, let's start off by, could you touch a little bit on the Oracle cloud strategy overall and where things, as you go into this exciting 2020 year, where do things stand for you folks?
Yeah, no problem. And I think this is appropriately titled because it's Cloud Wars. It's not IaaS Wars, it's Cloud Wars. And so when we think of cloud, we look at it holistically. Cloud includes an application layer, and those could be, ERP, HCM, CX applications, supply chain. It could be retail applications, construction applications, healthcare. So you have all these things that exist now in the cloud. And then you have this platform layer, which of course includes data management, which is database and integration and application development and important things like analytics and security. And then we see that foundational layer, which is your infrastructure as a service. So that's going to be your servers, your networking, your compute. And we think it's important not only to participate in all layers of the cloud, because at the end of the day, I don't think customers think in terms of those buckets. People sometimes might conflate cloud with IaaS, but if I'm moving an application to cloud, or if I'm building something net new, that could span apps, that could span integration, that could span analytics, that could span storage. And then it's not just the cloud pieces, but I think hybrid is a new black. That's one of my predictions in 2020. How about that? It really is, because at the end of the day, people need a thoughtful approach to cloud. And I think it's going to be one that is not only multi-cloud, but multi-cloud on-prem. So I think that's ultimately how we think of it. So Cloud Wars is the right way to think of it, for sure.
Well, Steve, I agree with you. And, it's funny as you were describing that hybrid's new black. I think it was, a couple of years ago, I think Larry had coined the term the decade of coexistence.
Yeah.
It's not going to be, all of one or all the other. This is the world that your customers want to live in, right?
Yeah, I think so. And if you think about where we came from an on-prem world, we worked with everything. We ran on everybody's hardware. We worked alongside Microsoft and SAP and different flavors of software and different networking products and different security products and multiple analytics products. And so we came from this heterogeneous on-prem world. And so as we move to cloud, people might say, oh, it's a little bit surprising that you've worked with a Microsoft or a VMware, but for us, it's natural in terms of not only simplifying the migration to cloud, but also understanding that it would be multi-cloud. And I think we get that because our DNAs come from a multi-vendor on-prem world.
Yeah, and Steve, one of the big issues here for 2020, is the acceptance of, the awareness of, and the whole thing about autonomous database. I think it's been quite interesting to see that there's really no other challenger, no other competitor to this technology Oracle has. But from what Larry and Safra have said on the earnings calls, it certainly seems that customers are very eager to see what could happen here with in the digital world of digital business, to have a database that is fully autonomous. So talk to us a little bit about what the reaction to that has been, and what's the momentum like right now?
Yeah, it's been amazing. I think, as Larry mentioned, it's probably one of our most successful launches to date. I think the quarter over quarter, it's growing by 100%. We have thousands of customers running on it. And I think the value props are just really too amazing to ignore if you think about it. And not trying to be, marketing hyperbole, but if you think about it, it's self-driving, it's self-securing, and it's self-repairing. So it eliminates human errors. It automates, most of the tasks, 80-90% of the tasks that you would normally have to take on with respect to maintenance and others. things like self-patching might be the killer app. You know, we used to talk about in terms of killer apps for things back in the day. I know I'm dating myself. But for customers, especially when you look at some of these breaches, I mean, Equifax was a breach that was, it was an unpatched database. You look at things like Capital One, and that was an internal attack, and it was something that just wasn't secured, you know, encrypted by default, which autonomous does as well. And so we think, you know, at the end of the day, self-securing, self-repairing, and self-driving relate to reduced cost because the maintenance is automated for me. It amounts to reduced risks, again, self-patching, self-encrypting, elimination of human error. And then it also really helps customers focus on innovation. So if I'm not spending time on the maintenance, if I'm not spending time gathering data and preparing the data and analyzing the data, but I'm, you know, it's time to insights. It's in the things people are doing with autonomous are amazing. And I'd love to talk to you more about that. You know, those value props are hard to ignore. And in addition, not like I think sort of the Amazon case that's out there where it takes, you know, years and 100 teams and, you know, unlimited resources to move off of Oracle. We make it very simple for our customers to adopt autonomous database.
Yeah, that seems to be something, Steve, we're hearing more and more from Oracle about that. It's simple, it's fast, and it's that Oracle has sort of taken on a lot of the integration responsibility rather than, you know, as we've seen over the last 10, 15, 20 years in the enterprise space, the vendors sold this stuff out to the customers, and it was the customer's responsibility to make all that mismatched stuff work together.
I think that's right. It's a fundamentally different philosophy. Like if you look at what we're doing with emerging technology, we're taking things like machine learning and we're embedding it into the database to make it self-driving. We're taking that technology and we're integrating it into our security technology so it can automatically identify anomalous behavior or events and protect against that. We're using machine learning to provide autonomous Linux OS, which gives you a pure self-driving, self-securing, self-repairing, no human error operating system as well. And it's interesting, but we're also taking the same technology and we're weaving it into the applications. So machine learning integrated into ERP can help you automatically identify fraud via audits. Integrated into supply chain allows you to recognize patterns and pricing and optimize your supply chain. So we do feel if you sort of see how other vendors talk about something like machine learning, it's like download the code, you need like a room full of PhDs and you can figure out what to do with it. And to your point exactly, we've done the hard work to take this technology and implement it into the services we offer our customers so they have out-of-box value leveraging that technology, but they don't need to do the work themselves. You know, focus on what matters the most for your company and let us do the hard work on the integration.
Steve, if I could follow up with one other thing on that, I think it was at Open World that Steve Miranda talked about, as you just pointed out, some of the benefits from having applications that are optimized to run with autonomous database.
Yeah.
And more recently also, Bruno Aziza on the analytics side has described how there's more capabilities there when you've got those analytical tools tied in specifically with autonomous.
Yeah, that's exactly right. With autonomous being the foundation to the apps, with autonomous plus Oracle Analytics Cloud or autonomous with third-party, to your point, third-party vendor analytics tools can leverage that power of machine learning integrated into the database where you don't need to spend the time actually gathering the data. You can spend more time on understanding it and taking action. And for core tasks that are associated with applications like HCM, like sales and marketing tools, like supply chain, like ERP, you can automate these core asks or tasks, and you can actually aggregate data in a way where you could present recommendations, and they could be based on historical, and then you get into a place where there will be predictive. It can automatically take actions for you, or you could understand the data and self-direct it. So we give a lot of options for our customers in terms of how they leverage this technology.
Yeah, and Steve, within your recent comments here, you had mentioned a couple financial services companies that, you know, had that sort of wake up in the morning, the worst nightmare happens with breaches.
Yeah.
You've got a unique approach now to cybersecurity, right? With autonomous and across the Oracle Cloud. Talk to us a little bit about that.
Yeah, for us, I mean, I think this is something that's been, it's our DNA. I mean, really 40 years worth of focusing on security. And that's no different as we move to cloud. And when you look at it, it's multiple areas. There's we hear a lot about the perimeter, it's about protecting the network, but users are the new perimeter. And then it's about application access. It's about encrypted data. And then it's about the infrastructure itself. And so, you look at some of this and 70% of breaches are still happening internal to a company. So I can tout all I want about network perimeter defense, but at the end of the day, if that data isn't encrypted, which was sort of a case of one of these financial institutions, you lose 100 million records because of internal error, internal malpractice, in some of the cases where you just didn't get around to patching. And these are big, complex environments. I mean, this is just difficult to do. So why not take emerging technology like machine learning and integrate that with, decades, thousands of man years worth of engineering database optimization, because we couple that and then along with our Gen 2 cloud to give you this autonomous capability. So, and security is first. It's users, it's apps, it's data, it's infrastructure, it's inside out. These breaches wouldn't have happened on Oracle. If it was encrypted at rest, internal breach wouldn't have mattered. If it was an Oracle database, it would have been self-patched. And I mean, you look at the competitors out there and the response was, hey, it performed as designed, or it's the customer's responsibility to, address the configurations. And we're like, it's a shared responsibility. And so it's a fundamentally different approach. And I think when you start seeing the acceleration to cloud, I mean, this is a main concern to people. It's not like, I need the performance, I need the scalability, I need the reliability, and security is paramount as I move my resources to cloud.
Steve, there's a couple other factors as well, right? Because, as you've pointed out there, the stakes are higher. The move toward digital business is putting more data at motion with more people inside businesses appropriately having access to be able to help make the right decisions. And then in another dimension, you've got IoT happening and the incredible new capabilities that happen there. But with that progress comes the cost of securing all that. So the nature of the perimeter, as you described it, is broadening more rapidly than we can really imagine. And the number of people who are now involved in working with data is higher than ever before. So these issues that you've described about the strategic importance of security at every possible layer and level is just, it seems it's more important than ever before. And it's only going to become more so, right?
I think you're right. And you're right. It's the type of data that's out there. We see these personal records. We see facial recognition data that is getting hijacked. You're right. There's a broader set of people, line of business now. I mean, I had a marketing intern configure an autonomous database in 2 minutes. And it's interesting when you look at our new data warehouse sales, 40% of them are actually net new to Oracle workloads. It's not a lift and shift. And many of them are in line of business. And so you're right, there's more people than traditional IT that's touching the data. Now, I think the positive thing about this as we engage with customers is while security used to be inhibitor to cloud, we're actually now seeing it as enabler. We go in and we present our story and customers are like, your cloud's going to be more secure than I can do on my own. And so I think that's playing very well for customers. I think they understand this stuff is moving and it's complicated because if it's multi-cloud, if it's hybrid cloud, I'm connecting on-prem to cloud, on-prem to multi-cloud. How do I think about connecting all that? And that's happening anyway. So coming in with a story that resonates and shows them that they have a true shared partnership in how we approach this. And there's just some fundamentals we apply to avoid risk is something that I think is really helping to accelerate things for us.
Well, Steve, the point you just made about the movement from, what had seen before in the early years of the cloud, that cybersecurity was a risk with the
Yeah.
cloud, now to being an enabler. I mean, it's just true. And I think you talk to a lot of businesses of any size, and it's not at all an indictment of the teams they have trying to do the cybersecurity. I mean, the bad guys are out there. They're getting smarter, faster, better than ever before. And as we've discussed, the nature of business here in 2020 is just very different. Data is everywhere. So that ability for a tech vendor to be seen as an enabler of some of these new essential strategic capabilities, rather than somebody, maybe in the past, some tech company said, hey, look, I sold you the stuff. Now it's up to you.
Yeah, well, it's not in the past. It's still happening.
Yeah, yeah,
I mean, now, look at Amazon's own press releases.
yeah,
But it's true. It's absolutely true with respect to security, and I think people are understanding now its enabler. I think you're right. It's sort of interesting when you look at the stats. In 85% of the cases where a breach occurred, there was a patch already available. There's like an average enterprise has 17,000 alerts a week, and only 4% are investigated. And there's this other stat that there's like over 3.5 million open cybersecurity positions in the next 12 months. And so people, no matter how many, can't sort of deal with these advanced persistent threats that are either external attacks on the network, or in 70% of the cases internal threats, which we just don't think about, but it's true. I mean, once they're inside of I can close all the doors and bolt everything, but once they're in, how do I have things protected? And I would say the bad actors, to your point, are using these same emerging technologies to wage a highly sophisticated war against our customers. And so they just can't do it alone, and we don't think they have to. In fact, there's like one other number, 100%. That's the amount of times you have to get it right versus the bad guys. I mean, the bad guys only have to get it right once. And so we're in it with our customers to help.
yeah. So Steve, you, a few minutes ago, you had alluded to the infrastructure layer. Now, certainly with Oracle's Gen 2 infrastructure, this current subject we're on here about cybersecurity is an issue, but there's also other things that are involved. There are other benefits that Oracle says the Gen 2 IaaS can offer. Tell us a little bit about that, and what's the perception or the reception you're getting from customers?
Yeah, I think it's, security's been paramount. I think when you look at what we've done, I mean, we did have an opportunity to be a fast follower. And, we've designed a Gen 2, really purpose built for the enterprise, and with sort of foresight into these types of workloads like machine learning, like IoT, like blockchain. We're having tremendous adoption with HPC applications. And so not only can we support traditional workloads, but you need something that's architected to support and scale these workloads that weren't around 10 years ago, if we're going to be honest. And so I think security, I think performance, things around governance and control that are important to enterprises. I mean, the way IaaS sort of grew was a bunch of different departments that were swiping credit cards, and who knows where your IP was going. And so today it's a little bit more of a mature approach, and it's something, again, we came at it with an enterprise view in mind. And it also has been foundational to everything we do. So our applications have moved to run on our Gen 2 infrastructure. Our GBU apps, which is the finance, the healthcare, the construction apps, 60, I think, out of 40 of those have already moved. It's funny, in one weekend, we moved 10,000 customers on a construction app to OCI Gen 2, and was transparent. And so we're doing it. We're growing to meet demand. I think we announced that we were going to add, 20 new regions in the next year. I think that's about 20. That's about every 23 days we're adding a data center region. In the last 6 months, and it's been Seoul, Mumbai, Sao Paulo, Zurich, Sydney, 2 FedRAMP data centers, 3 DoD data center regions. And so we're expanding. We've announced that we'll hire 2,000 people to help support global expansion, engineering and development on a global basis for this. So we're excited about the momentum. And it really is foundation to sort of to go back to cloud wars versus IaaS wars. It's foundation to really everything we're doing, including IaaS services.
Steve, it also seems like some of the things that Oracle's doing with its Gen 2 infrastructure and then autonomous database is a maturation of the early days of the cloud, right? You know, as new industries start, terms and concepts are sort of defined by the industry, but over time, customers sort of say, hey, look, that's all fine for your inside baseball stuff. Here's what we want. Here's how we need it. And it seems that the pairing of autonomous with the Gen 2 infrastructure is an opportunity to help customers optimize the best capabilities of both. So do you see there that Oracle's got a differentiated position by being able to bundle those together?
It really is. Again, they work in concert. So when we're offering somebody autonomous database, that it comes with the Gen 2. I mean, that database runs on Exadata that's made up of our Gen 2. So this is all together. And it's not just customer requirements. It's interesting. It's our own requirements, because when Steve Miranda wants to run ERP, you know, on Oracle Cloud, I mean, our ERP is used by some of the biggest companies in the world and houses your most sensitive data. So, you know, we got to make sure it meets those demands as well. But I'll tell you, just like this quarter, we talked about Biogen and Cisco and MGM Entertainment and Walgreens and Swiss Post. These are all companies that are using autonomous and Gen 2 together. So it's an exciting time. It's a differentiated product. And, you know, I think, you know, it's exciting going into 2020 to have this head of steam with us around autonomous.
Steve, one other look ahead question here for this year. You get to travel the world, spend lots of time with customers. What's their general sense now about the trends that of the topics they ask you about and their priorities as you're coming into this year, when it seems that the digital move is certainly happening, the primacy of their ability to deliver quickly on what their customers want and need, right? Things are happening so fast now.
I think that's it. You know, it's interesting. We may have talked about this a little bit before, but you know what I'm seeing it again, if you look at sort of the last decade of cloud and what we've sort of talked about, a lot of it has been, okay, I mean, there was early benefit to, instead of buying storage and racking and stacking in my data center, I'm going to rent storage from you. You know, instead of buying and deploying compute capacity on my own, I'm going to rent, you know, compute from you. And it was great, and it reduced costs, and there was scale there, arguably reduced costs. And as some people have sort of, there's a dual edge there. But what I'm finding out is like people, it's not about moving the data. It's about what do I do with that data now that I've moved it, right? How do I apply rich analytics? How do I leverage things like IoT? How do I do things like blockchain to track the provenance of goods, or to reconcile across ERP systems, or provide transparency in banking transfers? We have customers using autonomous database to reduce the time it takes to get blood results from 2 weeks down to 30 minutes, to provide precision agriculture, leveraging weather data, drone photographs, and others, so they can optimize crop yields. So we're seeing this, you know, this sort of going from like a very sort of, I think, simple value proposition, which on its own was obviously revolutionary, to your point, what can I do differently? Just moving my storage from my prem to your cloud doesn't change my business. It doesn't help me engage with customers or innovate in newer and faster ways. And so I think that's what customers are looking to embrace. And those are the types of conversations we're having with them.
Steve, it makes perfect sense here. You know, one of the premises here at Cloud Wars is that the cloud is going to be sort of the engine of the digital economy. And of course, it's up to every business to use those capabilities in the right way. But the explosion of the acceptance of what's going on now with cloud is companies sort of every size and every industry all around the world are seeing, I can use the cloud to move faster, to, as you described earlier, Steve, redeploy my resources toward higher value, externally facing growth opportunities instead of internal sort of grunt work. And I think that 2020 represents an opportunity here for the entire industry to help their customers do things, as you said, that they never thought possible before, create new business models, and become the sort of companies they need to be to really thrive in this customer-driven future.
No, I couldn't agree more. I appreciate it. And I appreciate you providing this platform as well. I think it's really informative for people as they look at making decisions going forward. So I appreciate it.
Steve, thanks. Last word for you. Anything that you wanted to be sure to touch on before we wrap up?
I think we've covered it. And yeah, I think we're going in an exciting year. I think it's about autonomous. It's about integrating intelligence into the applications. I think it's about delivering differentiated out-of-box value to our customers across all layers of the cloud. And again, I think when we think of cloud, think of it holistically, because again, while we tend to try to put things in buckets from a deployment perspective, those disappear. We don't think in silos, or at least we shouldn't as we move forward, and we should think holistically in terms of solutions, and we should think about offerings that provide hybrid, new black, multi-cloud, as well as multiple layers of services to help support that journey.
Can I jump in a little bit on your trend there with the new black? I got a black shirt on, Steve.
I know. This is probably the one time I'm not wearing black, but I did try to go, black is a food safe color for me, because I tend to build things on me, but this will still provide some camouflage.
Look great. You look great. Absolutely. Steve, thanks a million. Always a pleasure to speak with you. And thanks for those illuminating ideas about where 2020 is headed.
Thanks so much. Yeah, have a happy new year. Take care.
Thanks, Steve. And thanks to all of you folks for being out here, for joining us here in this special episode of Cloud Wars Live, sponsored by Oracle and featuring Steve DeHeeb, Senior VP for the Cloud Business Group at Oracle. Look forward to seeing you next time.